Hey, welcome back. I have scoured the internet to find you the four best storytelling techniques, and I've sort of encapsulated them here by even stealing their pictures. Don't tell anyone. Anyhow, that's really what we do around here. But so in your persuasive talks, again, you're trying to, make a persuasive argument for people to believe what you believe or to do a particular thing. And so one of the better ways to do that in terms of making that pathos, that emotional appeal, is to tell a story because it humanizes what you're doing. And we've talked about this. You see politicians do it all the time. Of course. You can talk a lot about facts and figures about like unemployment and the working poor and all that, but if you put a face on it, if you're like Susie has 3 kids and works 5 jobs, and the single mother and all that good stuff, that puts a face on it. It hits home a little better. And so we've got a couple of stories, or storytelling techniques rather, for you to look at here. And so hopefully this will be interesting for you. The first one is called monomyth. Okay. And so basically you can see here, they've used this is Simba from The Lion King. And you basically start in a known territory. Something terrible happens, like Mufasa dying, and then you're like set off into this sort of unknown journey, eventually to arrive back home older and wiser, and able to share what you've learned with your loved ones and the people of your community. And while this may seem, kind of silly, this is like so fundamentally human that like if you start to look for it, it is in every Disney movie you've ever seen. It's in Star Wars. It's in Star Trek. It's in every good movie that involves like a single person doing a thing follows the monomyth. It's also called a hero's journey. So look it up. You should actually look it up by the hero's journey name. There's a book about it. And it just shows how like every story you've ever heard that you thought was awesome follows this like 12-step formula. So again, taking a person from a place that they, where they knew and was safe, and something happens and they are threatened and they go out into the world, there's trials and tribulations, and then they come home, and this is probably the most important part, they, share to make the community better, right? So it's good for you if you want to take your audience on a journey. Like maybe you want to tell them about, like a series of events. If you can cast it in this hero's journey sort of format, they will immediately understand what is happening. Like even if they've never heard of this, hero's journey thing, like people get it. Like they will understand what the next step in the story is and why we're going there and all that good stuff. It's also good if it's about you, if you're the hero and you're wanting to share like how you learned something or how you came to arrive at some conclusion that you want, to persuade them to believe in as well. So it's a good one. And I just have examples of like Star Wars, Lion King, but also, my God, like the, what do you call it? Beauty and the Beast, and the Rescue Rangers, and The Little Mermaid. I'm really dating myself now. I'm telling you all the Disney movies. Aladdin, like... So Hercules probably, isn't that one? I don't even know. All right, so moving on. So the next one is called spark lines. And so basically what you're doing here is you're contrasting, a hopeful future, things that could be, against a very sad, bleak reality, right? And so that's why it's got this up, down, up, down, up, down thing. And so in this one, it's good for drawing attention to the problems that we have, like either, in society, if you're a politician that's running, if you're in business, if you're trying to get them to, purchase a new product that will make it, better, or adopt a new practice. This is a good one to use. Also good to use in your personal life, right? Like maybe you've had, your personal life is in the dumps and you need somebody to come along and say, it could be here. And then they highlight the contrast. And then the next logical step is, what do we got to do to get there? So good for inspiring the audience to action, for creating hope and excitement and creating a following. If you've never watched it, you probably should. I know I reference it a lot, but it's only because it's one that most people at least have some working knowledge of. But the I Have a Dream speech is basically follows the sparkline format. It's, I have a dream that all of these great things could happen, and then, goes back and contrasts that with where people are in 1963. And then, the juxtaposition is what makes people think, gosh, like this is a thing that we should really, care about, because, you tell them what it could be, and then you tell them what it is. And then the immediate thing is that they want to help to make it better. So good things. Okay. This one, I don't really know how to say it, but it's like in medias res. And so this is whenever you drop somebody, if you're telling your persuasive talk and you drop somebody into the middle of a story, This is every like teen movie that you've ever seen where it's like record scratch, freeze frame, and then they come to the side and they're like, I bet you wonder how I got here. And then, of course, in your head, you're like, yes, I do wonder how you got here. Gosh, this is a crazy pivotal moment in your storyline. Maybe you'd better now take it from the top and catch me up so that I then later care about what happens to you at the end of the story. That's what in medias res is. So you begin in the middle of the action before starting over at the beginning to bring the people back up to speed, right? One of the sort of tips for it is you only want to give enough information to hint at the conclusion and get people interested. Like you don't want to like in media res like drop people in at the moment where the main character dies, and then start over, because that would be lame, because they would know that the guy died, and why would they want to continue on with that? So good for grabbing people's attention, keeping up with the audience, like wanting to know what the end of the story is, and then it sort of draws the attention in your story to a pivotal moment, like in it, like a place at which it hinges. And so the example that I'm going to put up online is another TED Talk. And it is a guy that starts his story with the fact that his dad helped plan the 1993 World Trade Center bombings. Of course, that everybody's like, wait, what? And then he starts over to tell about, growing up in, I forget where he grew up, but how he got to this thing, and like, how did he make it to the TED stage if your dad's a terrorist, right? So interesting stuff. Here's the last one, and it's called pedal structure. And so this one is really good for basically if you want to tell a lot of different example stories to fortify or demonstrate or illustrate a central concept, right? And so each story gets to be its own little separate narrative, but eventually you bring them together and everybody's like, oh, and there's that moment where they see how all the stories overlap. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Babel, but it's kind of like that. Also, if you watch the last video, the Simon Sinek video, I referenced that, he talked about Martin Luther King Jr. and Apple and the Wright brothers, and all those seem like disparate stories that shouldn't go together. And he is able to talk through them, and then at the end bring them together in terms of like this central concept, which for him was the golden circle, right? He uses 3 different stories that are good and separate to emphasize the same main point. So this could be a thing that's good for you. Like maybe you want to tell like stories from like you on the farm and some other kid on the farm, and you came together like at some point, and that's how you believe in GMOs now. I don't know. So what the deal is, but hopefully these are helpful to you all. I would be really pleased if I see anybody using these, because as far as I'm concerned, these are like advanced persuasive techniques. So if you've thought that the class was a little basic so far, this is your challenge to incorporate one of these, as well as the start from why sort of principles into your persuasive talk, and really bring it home and win people over. So also handy if you ever run for office. Just remember us little folks. So good job. Thanks.